For the first time, we can see real, tangible evidence of what the contours of the new economy will look like. It's an economy teeming with new industry and commerce, and humming with new energy and new technologies, and bustling with highly skilled, higher-wage workers.
There are plenty of dirty words in and around the Washington, D.C. Beltway. One of them is perhaps the most foul and least desired for anyone to use, regardless of the disasters it might solve, the infamous C word. And President Obama had better put it to use in order to boost the economy, or we are in deep kimchi. Welcome to MidPoint, Professor of Business at the University of Maryland and renowned economist Peter Morici, joined by best-selling author with a focus on economics and tax issues and professor at the Syracuse University School of Law. His new book, Divided, The Perils of Our Growing Inequality, David Cay Johnston. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today.
Nice to be with you.
David, I'm going to begin with you first. That dirty, rotten C word in Washington is compromise. In your mind, is it ever even possible that people in D.C. will reach that when it comes down to the economy of this country?
Well, sure. That's how we've run this country for over 200 years. We just happen to be in an unusual period now where we have a minority in Congress who will not compromise on anything. And as a result, we are not getting what we need from government, which is to work on improving all of our lives.
In your opinion, then, who is most to blame for failing to embrace the C word?
Oh, I think the people who've declared that they won't do so. I mean, let's remember that just a few days after President Obama, somebody I've been very critical of, took office, Mitch McConnell made it clear that there would be no cooperation whatsoever, a stark contrast to what happened when the Democrats were very upset over the 2000 election results, but they gave the new president what he ran for, which was big tax cuts. So a huge difference in the way that Congress has behaved with the election of the last two, the current president and the one before.
All right, but then let me just make sure you're blaming the Republicans, correct? They're the ones who get most of the blame.
I mean, a subset of Republicans.
Okay.
Not all Republicans.
Wanted to make sure then. Peter, let me get it to you. There's another C word there you don't want to use in Washington. Cooperation as well. Compromise and cooperation. So in your opinion, we're going to talk about your article here in just a moment. Is the president willing to put those two words to actual use here, or do you not see that happening?
Well, he's really going to have to if he's going to have a meaningful final 2 years. Otherwise, he'll have to just limit himself to acting through executive order. However extra-constitutional that may be, short of impeaching a president, there's not much we can do when he wields his executive power around arbitrarily. I mean, in a couple of weeks, he's going to be faced with the reality of a Republican Senate and a marginalized liberal caucus in the Democratic Party in the House. Now, fortunately for him, the Senate will be more moderate than the House. It won't have a Tea Party caucus that's nearly as powerful or as influential. And I think there will be some room, but he's going to have to accept some things. He got a lot of what he wanted, despite what his defenders say, his first term. And he got $4 trillion in deficits. He got alternative energy programs and so forth. And a lot of that stuff hasn't worked out very well. We sure are seeing the contours of the new economy. Those contours aren't very pretty. The top 10% is doing very well. The bottom of the economy is doing well also. We're creating lots of jobs waiting on those people. But those middle-class jobs in manufacturing and construction simply aren't coming back, and we need to do something about that. Tax reform is critical. Both sides say they want it. Trade reform is equally critical, but I don't think we're going to get that.
All right, now I got about 45 seconds left. Well, then we'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll look a little bit deeper in these. But Peter, from your perspective, you listed 5 things in your article. We'll go over them more in depth here right after the break. But which is the one absolutely, positively, without a doubt, the president has got to compromise and cooperate on, or else it's simply not going to work in favor of the American people? The top one.
If they can't get together on tax reform, I don't see how they can get together on the other issues. He's going to push the pawn on higher education by recommending some standards to evaluate colleges, and I'm for that concept. But he's going to have to compromise a lot on that issue, too, so he doesn't turn it into merely just another form of affirmative action.
David, 25 seconds here before we take a break. Would you agree that tax reform is the number one, the thing to do?
No, absolutely not, because what we're not discussing tax reform. We're discussing tax cuts. Many big companies make a profit off their taxes. We need to address that. It isn't lower rates, because many companies literally make a profit from their taxes, as I've demonstrated in a congressional report confirmed.
All right, now we're going to go ahead, bring that back to tax reform versus tax cuts. More on the numbers and the dirty compromise word when we return with Peter Morici and David Cay Johnston. And later this hour, the left should learn a lesson about what happens when the public catches on to the phony war on women line. They start laughing. You'll hear it all right here on MidPoint.